miss my mommy, and her name Nykeria Jude. I miss her so much. God love everybody. Amen.
July 11th, 2025, 7:06 p.m. Tuna County deputies pull up to 1060 Soleil Drive in Robinsonville, Mississippi. What they find stops them cold. 3 people were shot. A 30-year-old woman, no pulse, a 24-year-old man barely breathing, and a 6-year-old girl, small hands pressed against her chest, crying for her mother. The shooter has already vanished. But here's the part that will haunt this community. 4 days later, they find his body in the woods, less than a football field away from this house. He never ran. He was there the whole time, watching, waiting. The question that keeps everyone up at night: what was he waiting for? Welcome to True Crime Anatomy. To our amazing subscribers, thank you for being here, and may your family stay safe wherever they are. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because we bring you the parts the media never reported. If you scroll through Nykeria Jude's social media, you see the same thing in every picture. Her daughter right beside her, both of them smiling. That little girl looking up at her mom like she hung the moon. And Nikaria looking back with the kind of love that needs no caption. Her sister remembers her as vibrant, the kind of person who lit up a room without trying. Protective, especially when it came to her daughter. At 30 years old, Nikaria was building something. Working, raising her child in Robinsonville, making plans for a future that seemed within reach. The small moments mattered most to her. Bedtime stories where her daughter would fight sleep just to hear one more page. Morning routines, braiding hair, packing lunches, those tiny rituals that make a childhood feel safe. Nikaria had dreams for her little girl. College, a life better than her own. The kind of future every mother fights for. People who knew her say that bond between mother and daughter was unbreakable. You could see it, feel it. They were a team. But there was a part of Nikaria's life she kept private, a part she didn't post about. A part that was slowly tightening around her like a noose she couldn't see. Markell Braxton, 41 years old, also from Robinsonville, also a father. On the surface, he looked like anyone else in this small Mississippi town. He had children, including a 24-year-old son. He posted on social media. He lived a life that seemed, from the outside, ordinary. But if you look closer at what he shared online, cracks start to show. One post in particular stands out now. He wrote, "It hurts me so bad when I lose something I really wanted to keep. Where the F did I put that dollar?" Read that again. Something I really wanted to keep. Not someone, something, an object, a possession, and then the punchline, a dollar bill. The joke is supposed to make you laugh, but the first part, that's a confession. Psychologists who study abusive relationships recognize this language immediately. It's the language of ownership. People aren't partners, they're belongings. And when you lose a belonging, you don't grieve the relationship, you grieve the loss of control. For Markell Braxton, losing didn't mean sadness, it meant rage. It meant that something he believed he owned had been taken from him. And in his mind, that required correction, required punishment. Markell Braxton didn't know how to let go. He only knew how to destroy. That's when Nykeria Jude met Markell Braxton. She was in her early 20s. He was older, confident, and at first he seemed like exactly what she'd been looking for. People who knew them in those early days say Markell knew how to say the right things. He made Nikaria feel seen, special, like she mattered in a way she hadn't felt before. That's how it starts. That's always how it starts. But relationships reveal themselves slowly, and what looked like attention began to feel like surveillance. What seemed like care began to feel like control. He started pulling her away from friends, subtly at first. A comment here about someone being a bad influence, a guilt trip there about not spending enough time with him. Then the arguments started, over small things, things that shouldn't matter, except they did matter, to him, because it was never about the thing itself. It was about testing how much control he had. And then came the pattern that traps so many women. They'd break up, he'd apologize, promise he'd change, beg for another chance. She'd see the man she fell for, the one who said the right things, and believe maybe this time would be different. Sometimes they'd be apart for weeks, sometimes months, but the red flags never stopped appearing. They just got easier to ignore when he was on his best behavior. Here's what makes Markell Braxton's abuse particularly insidious. He didn't need to raise a fist to hurt her. He used words that cut deeper than any bruise. He used silence as punishment, days of refusing to speak, making her feel invisible. He used manipulation, making her question her own reality until she didn't trust herself anymore. This is psychological warfare, and it leaves scars you can't photograph for evidence. By 2025, Nikaria had reached a conclusion. This relationship was poisonous, and more importantly, it was affecting her daughter. She started creating boundaries, not dramatic declarations or public confrontations, just quiet, firm distance, for her daughter's safety, for her own peace. But Markell wasn't ready to accept that. In his mind, she didn't get to make that choice. She was his, and what was his didn't get to leave. Ponya Dodson from Beauty Beyond the Scars, a domestic violence prevention organization, has seen this pattern before. She says every 60 seconds, 24 people are going through physical aspects of domestic violence.
24 people are going through physical, not all of the abuse, but the physical aspect of domestic violence, right? So that means over 12 million people a year.
And the signs are there, but we miss them, or we overlook them. What Ponya is talking about is the escalation pattern. Domestic violence rarely explodes out of nowhere. It builds. Each incident was slightly worse than the last. Each boundary violation tests what they can get away with. And the most dangerous moment, the moment when victims are most likely to be killed, is when they try to leave. Nykeria and Markell's relationship had become what people close to them described as on and off. But by July 2025, Nykeria was done. This wasn't another break. This was the end. She was creating a life that didn't include him. The week of July 7th. We don't know everything that happened behind closed doors, but we know tensions were high. We know Markell could feel her slipping away, and we know that feeling, for a man like him, was intolerable. His 24-year-old son was there. Nykeria's 6-year-old daughter was there. Both of them caught in the middle of something they couldn't control and didn't understand. Friday, July 11th, 2025. Robinsonville, Mississippi. Population just over 2,000. The kind of place where people know their neighbors, where you leave your porch light on and your door unlocked, where violence feels like something that happens somewhere else. 1060 Soleil Drive sits in a quiet residential area. Small homes, yards with chain-link fences. The street name Soleil means sun in French. There's an irony in that, because what's about to happen here will cast a shadow this community won't forget. We don't know every detail of what led to 7:06 p.m., but we know the pieces. Markell Braxton is at the house, so is Nykeria, so is his 24-year-old son, so is Nykeria's 6-year-old daughter, his daughter too. Maybe there was an argument. Maybe Nykeria told him it was over. Maybe she said something he'd heard before but refused to accept. Or maybe he walked in already knowing what he was going to do, already carrying the gun, already past the point where words would matter. 7:06 p.m. Someone dials 911. Shots fired. That's all we know from the call. Shots fired at 1060 Soleil Drive. Inside that house, 3 people are bleeding. 3 different relationships to the man holding the gun, and 3 different reasons he pulled the trigger. His 6-year-old daughter, shot in the chest by her own father. Think about that. The little girl who looked up at him, who trusted him, who believed fathers protect their children. He aimed a gun at her and fired. Not by accident, not in confusion. He chose to shoot his child, his 24-year-old son, shot when he tried to intervene, when he stepped between the gun and the people Markell wanted to hurt. This young man had watched his father's behavior for years, and in the moment it mattered most, he tried to stop it. Markell shot him too, and Nykeria Jude, the woman he claimed to love, the woman he posted about online, the mother of his child. She was always the target. The daughter, the son, they were in the way. But Nikaria was the reason he came with a gun. This wasn't rage. This was a calculation. This was a man who decided that if he couldn't have her, no one could. That if she was going to leave him, she'd leave in a body bag. That her daughter would grow up without a mother because he'd rather destroy a family than lose control of it. When control becomes violence, this is what it looks like. 3 people were shot, 1 woman dead, and a killer walking out the door into the Mississippi night. Tuna County Sheriff's deputies are the first to arrive. They've responded to domestic calls before, noise complaints, arguments that got too loud, but nothing prepares you for what's waiting at 1060 Soleil Drive. They push through the door and the scene stops them cold. Blood everywhere. 3 people down, a child crying. The smell of gunpowder still hangs in the air. One of the deputies gets on the radio. "We need EMS now." 3 gunshot victims. Pafford EMS arrives within minutes. Paramedics rush in and start triage. Who can they save? Who's already gone? They're working against a clock that's already run out for one of them. The 6-year-old girl is conscious but fading, bullet wound to the chest. The 24-year-old man is barely breathing, critical. Massive blood loss. They get him stabilized enough to move, barely. And Nykeria Jude, 30 years old, mother, daughter, sister, friend, lying on the floor with no pulse, no breath, no chance. Tuna County Coroner Glenn Grant arrives and makes it official. Nykeria Jude is pronounced dead at the scene, in her own home, surrounded by her family, killed by a man who once promised to love her. 2 medical helicopters land nearby. The 6-year-old is rushed to Le Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis, one of the best pediatric trauma centers in the region. She's critical, touch and go. Her survival is not guaranteed. The 24-year-old is airlifted to Regional 1 Health, also in Memphis. He's lost so much blood, they're not sure he'll make it to the operating room alive. And the shooter? Markell Braxton? Gone. Vanished. The gun is missing too. Deputies search the house, the yard, the street. Nothing. He's not hiding under a bed or in a closet. He left, and now he's out there somewhere. The manhunt begins immediately. The Tuna County Sheriff's Office puts out an alert. Markell Braxton, 41 years old, black male, armed and extremely dangerous. If you see him, do not approach. Call 911. Within an hour, his photo is on every local news station. Facebook posts spread through Robinsonville like wildfire. Somewhere in the darkness, Markell Braxton is moving, or hiding, or planning his next move. The question haunting every deputy, every neighbor, every person who knows what he just did is simple. Where did he go? The answer, when it comes 4 days later, will be the most disturbing part of all. Meanwhile, in Memphis, a little girl is fighting for her life. Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, intensive care. A 6-year-old with a gunshot wound to the chest. Doctors work around the clock. Every hour she survives is a small miracle, and then she wakes up. Groggy from medication, confused, in pain. The nurses gather around, relieved she's conscious. Word spreads about her condition, about what she said. The 24-year-old son is also in surgery, also fighting. 2 victims clinging to life while their attacker runs free. Saturday passes, then Sunday. The search continues that passes makes capture less likely. The trail goes cold, the leads dry up, frustration builds, and then Monday comes. 4 days since the shooting, 96 hours of searching, and at 4:47 p.m. someone makes a discovery that changes everything. We've got a body, wooded area behind Soleil Drive, send units immediately. Deputies and U.S. Marshals rush to the scene. The woods behind the homes on Soleil Drive, the same street where the shooting happened. Not miles away, not across town, less than 100 yards from 1060 Soleil Drive. The body is in advanced decomposition, 4 days in Mississippi summer heat. But the clothing matches, the build matches, and when they search nearby, they find something else. A gun. Markell Braxton never ran. He never fled to another state. He never had a getaway plan. He walked out of that house after shooting 3 people, walked into the woods behind the neighborhood, and stayed there for 4 days while hundreds of people searched for him, while his daughter lay in a hospital bed asking for her dead mother, while his son fought for his life, while an entire community locked their doors in fear. He was right there. The body is transported to the Mississippi Crime Lab in Jackson for positive identification, but investigators already know this is him. Cause of death hasn't been officially released, but all evidence points to suicide. The gun was found nearby, the location, the timing. Markell Braxton shot 3 people, then walked into those woods and turned the gun on himself. But here's what haunts investigators. Why did he stay so close? If he planned to kill himself, why not do it immediately? Why wait 4 days? Was it guilt? Was he hoping to hear his daughter survived? Was he waiting to see if police would find him first? Or was he watching the house, watching the investigation, watching the aftermath of what he'd done? We'll never know. He chose his ending. He chose to avoid arrest, avoid trial, avoid accountability. He chose to deny Nykeria's family the chance to face him in court. He chose to leave questions that will never be answered. No confession, no explanation, no apology, just a body in the woods and 3 shattered lives back at the hospital. The manhunt is over. But for the people who loved Nykeria Jude, the nightmare is just beginning. Days turn into weeks. The 6-year-old girl defies every odds. She survives surgery, she survives infection, she survives the knowledge of what happened to her and what her father did. And when she's finally stable enough to leave Lebanhur Children's Hospital, something remarkable happens. Tuesday, July 23rd. A convoy of police vehicles stretches down the highway. Shelby County, DeSoto County, Coahoma County, Tuna County. Deputies from 4 different counties come together to escort this little girl home. After some time during an interview, the first words out of her mouth break everyone present.
I miss my mommy, and her name Nykeria Jude. I miss her so much. God love everybody. Amen.
Sheriff Casey Hamp releases a statement. We wanted to make sure the blue lights she remembers aren't tied to tragedy, but to love, strength, and support. Think about that. This child's last memory of police lights was that Friday night. Officers arrived after her father shot her. Now they're showing her that those lights can mean something different. Protection, community, hope. She goes to live with her grandparents now. The people who raised Nykeria are now raising Nykeria's daughter, trying to help her heal from wounds no 6-year-old should carry. 2 months after the shooting, Nykeria's sister posts on social media, "2 months, you've been gone, sis. Miss seeing you and talking to you, girl. I'd be so down when nobody even knows it. I just wish you were here. I'm broken without you, my love. Till we meet again. I love you forever and always, lady." That's what murder leaves behind. Not just one victim. A sister who's broken, a daughter who's traumatized. Grandparents bury their child and raise their grandchild. A family that will never be whole again. The 24-year-old son recovers physically. But how do you recover from watching your father murder someone? From being shot while trying to save lives? Those scars don't show up on X-rays. Robinsonville holds a memorial for Nykeria. Candles, photos, flowers left on the street corner. People who knew her, people who didn't. All coming together to say her name. To remember she was more than a headline. The house on Soleil Drive, Sun Street, sits empty now. No one wants to live where that much blood was spilled. It becomes a marker, a reminder. The place where Nykeria Jude's life ended and a little girl's childhood died. Ponya Dodson from Beauty Beyond the Scars said something after this case that deserves repeating. Love is not supposed to hurt. That's not love. And the signs sometimes are there, but we miss them or we overlook them. The signs were there with Markello and Nykeria. The on and off relationship, the control, the manipulation, the social media post about losing something he wanted to keep. These weren't subtle, but they were normalized, excused, overlooked. Emotional abuse is the precursor, always. It establishes the control that later becomes physical violence. And in cases like this, it becomes murder. In the United States, an intimate partner kills approximately 3 women every single day. Every day, and the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when they try to leave. That separation phase, when they finally say enough, is when they're most likely to be murdered. Nykeria tried to leave. She set boundaries. She protected her daughter. She did everything right, and it still wasn't enough to save her. Could anything have stopped this? Protective orders are pieces of paper. They don't stop bullets. Police intervention requires someone to call, someone to press charges, someone to testify. And even then, abusers often escalate after arrest. Mississippi has domestic violence laws, but like most states, enforcement is inconsistent. Resources are limited, shelters are full, and victims face an impossible choice: stay and risk death, or leave and risk death. If you're experiencing domestic violence, there are people who can help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. They're available 24/7. They can connect you with local resources, help you create a safety plan, and support you through the process of leaving safely. Local shelters exist throughout Mississippi and every state. They provide confidential housing, legal advocacy, counseling. You don't have to do this alone. Nykeria Jude was 30 years old. She worked, She raised her daughter, she smiled in photos, she tried to build a future. She did everything a domestic violence expert would tell her to do. She set boundaries, she created distance, she protected her child. And a man who claimed to love her killed her anyway. Her legacy isn't her death, it's the conversation her death forces us to have. About red flags we ignore, about warning signs we excuse, about the difference between love and possession. About teaching our children, especially our sons, that losing someone doesn't give you the right to destroy them. Nykeria's daughter will grow up without her mother, but she'll grow up in a world that's talking about domestic violence more openly because of what happened to her family. That has to mean something. It has to. Thank you for watching. Help exists, safety is possible, and to Nykeria's family, we see you, we remember her. We're so sorry the system failed to protect her. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you seen warning signs like this ignored? Have you experienced this cycle? Let's talk about it. These conversations save lives. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Tomorrow, we're covering another case that exposes the gaps in our justice system. Stay safe out there. And remember, love doesn't hurt, control isn't care, and leaving is the bravest thing a victim can do. Rest in peace, Nykeria Jude. Your daughter is safe now. We'll make sure she knows how much you loved her.